Tokagypt 58. The Tokagypt 58 grew from Fyodor Tokarev's TT-30, TT-33 lineage adopted by the Soviet Union in the early 1930s. Hungary's FEG built domestic TT variants after the war and produced the Tokagypt 58-inch 9x19mm for an Egyptian order, while most earlier TTs used 7.62 by 25mm Tokarev. USSR manufacture ran through Tula and Izhevsk. Extensive licensed or unlicensed production followed in China, Romania, Yugoslavia, Serbia, Poland, North Korea, and Vietnam. Alternative names and close relatives include TT, TT-33, China's Type 5154 and Model 213, Romania's TTC, Yugoslavia's M57 and later M70 TMT-88, and Hungary's M48 and Tokagypt. Export models often added external thumb safeties to satisfy import rules. Egyptian contracts initially intended to supply thousands, yet cancellations redirected many pistols into Europe, where surplus markets and later dissolutions of state stockpiles made them accessible to militant organizations seeking cheap, serviceable sidearms. Red Army faction cells obtained Tokagypt pistols. ETA in Spain and Portugal's FP-25 also sourced them. Viet Cong cadres used sterile Chinese Type 54 M20s, and Afghan Mujahideen acquired captured TTs and Khyber Pass copies during the Soviet-Afghan War. The pistol is a single-action, short recoil design with a tilting barrel and a modular hammer/sear unit that simplifies armory service. The 7.62 by 25mm cartridge's velocity favored penetration through heavy clothing, which shaped both doctrine and perceptions of performance at service pistol distances. Cheska SA-VZ-58. Yuri Chermak's project at Cheska Zbrojovka produced the VZ 58-inch 1958. Production continued to 1984, with service persisting in Czech and Slovak use and abroad. Czechoslovakia adopted the Soviet 7.62 by 39mm cartridge for block logistics, but pursued an indigenous mechanism rather than building an AK. Designations include SAVZ-58, VZ-58P for the fixed stock model, VZ-58V for the side folder, and VZ-58Pi for the night sight model. Soldier nicknames Padlo for the fixed stock and Kosa for the folder mark everyday familiarity. The rifle uses a short-stroke piston and a locking piece-assisted breech block with a last-round bolt hold open and a receiver-integrated guide for 10-round stripper clips. Lightweight aluminum magazines are not interchangeable with AK magazines, underscoring its distinct lineage. Many post-Cold War surplus rifles were exported commercially, and thousands entered the civilian market in North America and Europe, which indirectly created secondary leakage channels later exploited by armed groups and smugglers. Terrorist use spans Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. During the January 2015 Paris attacks, Amedy Coulibaly employed a reactivated VZ-58, drawing attention to deactivation loopholes in parts of Europe. Broader appearances traced to the Syrian and Libyan civil wars, insurgencies in the Great Lakes region, and Southeast Asian conflict zones alongside state stocks in the Balkans. Civilian semi-automatic variants and modern accessory stocks kept the platform relevant beyond first-line service. Galil AR. Israel's experiences in the Six-Day War pushed development of a domestic rifle that blended AK-style reliability with Western expectations for accuracy. Yisrael Galili and Yaakov Lior refined the concept in the late 1960s. Full production began in 1972. Early runs used Valmet RK62 receivers, signaling routes in a Finnish AK derivative. The AR, ARM, and SAR defined the core family, while the Galatz Marksman variant and later ACE modernization extended service life. The standard rifle is called the Galil AR, while the model with a bipod and carry handle is called the ARM. Other designations include the SAR for the carbine, also known as the Gi-Lilon, Micro MAR, Galatz SR99, and the Galil ACE series. South Africa's licensed R4 family, Sweden's FFV 890 experiments, and Colombia's Indumil production illustrate international spread. ACE series in the 2000s re-established international sales, particularly in Latin America and Asia, and ensured that captured or diverted examples of this updated family also entered irregular arsenals in ongoing conflicts. Captured and diverted examples equipped FARC units in Colombia, reporting linked Medellin cartel procurement via Caribbean intermediaries. Syrian opposition groups fielded Galils in small numbers, and regional conflicts in Central Africa and the Horn show scattered use. Earlier state service covered the IDF in the 1970s-1980s before large-scale M16 and M4 deliveries displaced it at the front. A milled receiver, dual safety selectors, flip-up tritium sights, and a combination flash hider/rifle grenade spigot defined early rifles. The ARM's bipod incorporates a wire cutter and even a bottle opener to deter troops from damaging magazine feed lips. AK-47. Mikhail Kalashnikov's team completed working prototypes of the AK-47 in 1947. The Soviet armed forces accepted the rifle in 1949 after trials that followed Germany's STG-44 and the shift toward intermediate cartridges. Early production relied on milled Type 2/3 receivers until the lighter, cheaper-to-make stamped AKM arrived in 1959. Kalashnikov concern and numerous licensees and copy producers manufactured the family in vast numbers, and the RPK light machine gun grew directly from the pattern. Other names include Avtomat Kalashnikova, AK, and Kalashnikov, with Western usage often collapsing AKM and later derivatives into AK-47. Avtomat Kalashnikova, in English, means Kalashnikov's automatic. The Islamic State, the Taliban, Hezbollah, multiple Syrian opposition factions, Boko Haram, FARC and ELN elements, the Provisional IRA, Chechen separatists, Yugoslav-era formations, and the New People's Army have all used AK pattern rifles. Later modernization continued with the AK-74 in 5.45 by 39 mm, but the earlier 7.62 by 39 rifles remained in wide circulation through aid, surplus transfers, and clandestine manufacture, ensuring terrorist access for decades after Soviet frontline retirement. Conflicts include the Vietnam War, Soviet-Afghan War, Iran-Iraq War, Yugoslav Wars, Iraq and Afghanistan post-2001, the Syrian Civil War, the Russo-Ukrainian War, and insurgencies across Africa and Latin America. It runs a gas-operated long-stroke piston with a rotating bolt and generous clearances. Chrome bores and robust 30-round steel or polymer magazines aided longevity. The rifle appears on Mozambique's flag and in national emblems elsewhere, reflecting an unusual cultural footprint for a service arm. RPG-7. State Design Bureau Basalt completed the RPG-7 inches 1958. Soviet service began in 1961. The launcher retained the broad role of the earlier RPG-2, while expanding performance with a two-stage rocket, an initial booster, and an in-flight sustainer. Enormous production in the USSR and abroad, plus straightforward training, ensured near-universal global presence. Other than RPG-7, it's also known by other names and local copies that run from the RPG-7V2 and airborne RPG-7D families to China's Type 69, Romania's AG-7, Bulgaria's ATGLL, Vietnam's B-41, Iran's domestic line, and U.S. commercial PSRL. Insurgent groups known to use the RPG-7 range from the provisional IRA and the new IRA to Hezbollah, Hamas's Izz ad-Din al-Qassam brigades, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, the Taliban, ISIS, the Houthi movement, and militias across Africa. Notable episodes include Mogadishu in 1993 and repeated use in urban ambushes from Belfast to Baghdad. Because the launcher itself is durable and reloadable, only warheads need replenishment, allowing even decades-old tubes to remain in service with irregulars, provided munitions are available, a logistical reality observed in nearly every conflict zone. The 40mm launcher fires HEAT and tandem HEAT anti-armor grenades, thermobaric and fragmentation rounds, and specialized anti-bunker projectiles. The PG-07 sight provides a simple optical solution with range marks. The rocket tends to weather vane into crosswind, an effect operators account for in field firing. Dragunov SVD. Yevgeny Dragunov's rifle won Soviet trials over designs by Simonov and Konstantinov. Adoption followed in 1963, with serial production beginning in 1964 at Izhevsk. The intent was a platoon-level designated marksman rifle rather than a specialized sniper weapon, giving Warsaw Pact units reach against 7.62 battle rifles. China and Iran later produced indigenous copies. Russia has fielded the modernized SVDM and the shortened SVDS, and is introducing the Chukayevin SVCH alongside SVD stocks. Other names include SVDGR, AU6V1, SVDS, SVDM, and export or licensed patterns such as China's Type 79, 85, and Iraq's Al-Qadisiyah. The civilian Tiger adapts the mechanism for hunting markets, and Russia's TG-3 uses Lancaster oval bore to meet domestic regulations. Iran and Pakistan remain active producers into the 21st century, which sustains the availability of spare parts and refurbished rifles, making it easier for terrorist groups to keep captured or smuggled examples operational for long periods. Islamic State, Taliban elements, and numerous insurgent groups in Iraq, Syria, the Caucasus, and North and West Africa have used SVDs and Type 79's 85 derivatives. Appearances extend through Vietnam, Afghanistan, Chechnya, the Balkans, the Donbass, and the 2022 invasion of Ukraine. A short-stroke gas piston with a 3-lug rotating bolt feeds 7.62 by 54mm R from 10-round magazines. The PS014X optic with a stadiometric rangefinder and BDC is integral to the concept, with 7NN1, 7N14 ammunition, acceptance standard specified practical accuracy, appropriate to semi-automatic designated marksman use. Heckler & Koch G3. The G3 traces to post-war CETME work in Spain that adapted late-war German roller-delayed principles. West Germany adopted the rifle in 1959-1960 after trials against designs such as the AR-10 and SC IGS G510. H&K and numerous licensees produced more than 8 million rifles. The Bundeswehr later moved to the G36 while retaining G3s in reserve and marksman roles. Designations span G3A3 and G3A4 for fixed and telescoping stocks, the compact G3K, and national models like Norway's AG3, Sweden's AK4, Pakistan's POF G3, and Iran's G3A6. Specialized offshoots include the G3SG-1 and Precision PSG-1 MSG-90 lines. The Provisional IRA famously obtained a shipment of 100 G3s in 1984. Insurgent groups in West and Central Africa, the Middle East, and parts of South Asia fielded G3s as surplus filtered through black markets. Conflicts include the Portuguese Colonial War, South African Border War, Lebanese Civil War, Iran-Iraq War, Yugoslav Wars, and later fighting in Iraq, Syria, and Yemen. Mexican cartels have also possessed G3 pattern rifles. A roller-delayed blowback system with a fluted chamber promotes reliable extraction without a gas system. Push-pin modularity eases maintenance. Rotary diopter sights with a hooded front provide consistent zeroing across the 200 to 400 mirror settings, and 20-round steel or aluminum magazines are common. SA-7 9K32 Strela II. KBM's 9K32 Strela II entered service around 1968 after development through the mid-1960s. The improved 9K32M followed soon after, with extended range and better control logic. The system gave battalion-level units a passive infrared homing missile against low-altitude aircraft and helicopters at modest ranges, and shipboard SAN-5 mounts extended coverage at sea. Mass Cold War manufacture and export spread the type to dozens of states. Other names include SA-7 Grail under NATO reporting, the Strela 2M, and foreign derivatives such as China's HN-5, Pakistan's Anza Make-I, Romania's CA-94-94M, and North Korea's locally produced series. Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, Al-Shabaab, Hezbollah, Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad, the Houthi movement, the PKK, the Lord's Resistance Army, M23, Sudan's Rapid Support Forces, the United Way State Army, and the New People's Army have all been associated with SA-7 type stocks. The missiles saw extensive use in Vietnam, the Middle East from 1969 onward, Afghan fighting against helicopters, civil wars in Africa, the Balkans, Iraq and Syria after 2003, Yemen and Ukraine. Civil aviation incidents and attempts Rhodesian Viscount airliners in the late 1970s and the Mombasa 2002 attack illustrate the risks posed by proliferated manpads. The missile's relative obsolescence against modern countermeasures has not eliminated its threat, since helicopters, transport aircraft, and older jets remain vulnerable, and its low cost compared to newer manpads ensures enduring appeal for irregular forces. The Strela II family uses an uncooled lead sulfide spin scan seeker best suited to rear aspect shots against hot exhausts. Flares remain effective countermeasures. The system's portability, low training threshold, and continued availability on illicit markets explain its persistence decades after introduction. PKM. Mikhail Kalashnikov's PK entered service in 1961, beating the Nikitin Sokolov PN-1 after reliability issues surfaced in water, snow, and belt handling. The lighter, simplified PKM followed in 1969 and retains the core mechanism while easing manufacture and field carry. Production by Degtyaryov and numerous licensees across Eastern Europe and Asia ensured worldwide adoption. Coaxial tank versions like the PKT and PKTM and tripod kits broadened its roles from squad to vehicle and defensive mounts. Other names and derivatives include PK, PKM, PKS, PKMS on tripods, PKB for vehicles, and national copies such as Zastava's M84, Norinco's Type 80, and Romanian, Bulgarian, Ukrainian, and Vietnamese models. The later PKP Pecheneg introduced a fixed heavy barrel with forced air cooling. Even after the PKP Pecheneg became Russia's preferred issue gun, refurbished PKMs continue to surface in war zones, illustrating both the remarkable longevity of the design and the huge reserve stocks maintained by former Soviet clients. ISIS, the PKK, Hezbollah, and the Lord's Resistance Army appear among terrorist group users. The gun has been present in conflicts from Vietnam and Rhodesia to Afghanistan, Chechnya, Iraq, Syria, Mali, Yemen, and Ukraine. It fires 7.62 by 54 mm R from non-disintegrating metallic belts, operating from an open bolt with a long stroke piston and a rotating bolt. A quick detach, chrome-lined barrel with carry handle, a 3-position gas regulator, and Warsaw Rail optics options make the gun adaptable across climates and rolls, whether on a bipod or a tripod. FNFAL. Dieudonné Save, Guided Fabrique Nationale's post-war rifle from 1947 prototypes to a mature design by 1953. Trials began with 7.92 by 33 mm Kurds and 280 British. NATO standardization settled caliber on 7.62 by 51 mm. The result equipped dozens of Allied militaries and became known as the right arm of the free world. Other designations include the United Kingdom's L1A1 self-loading rifle, Austria's STG-58, West Germany's G1, South Africa's R1, and Brazilian IMBELM 964 series. Para models and heavy barrel versions broadened roles from infantry rifle to limited squad automatic use. Civilian semi-automatic versions, especially from DSA in the United States, extended the platform's life in shooting, sports, and hunting, while military aid programs released large caches of surplus rifles into unstable regions prone to conflict. Insurgent and terrorist circulation followed state procurement and later surplus flows. Fails appear with opposition and Kurdish forces in the Syrian civil war, and legacy rifles persist with armed groups in the Sahel, Central Africa, and Latin America when 7.62 NATO supply chains exist. Earlier conflicts include the Suez Crisis and the Falklands War on opposing sides. The short-stroke piston with an adjustable gas regulator let armorers tune rifles to ammunition and climate, and 20-round box magazines defined the standard load. Many services trained semi-auto only on light barrel guns to control recoil, with heavy barrel patterns reserved for automatic fire in limited bursts. If you found the material in this video informative, feel free to give it a like, share it with others who follow firearms history, and subscribe for upcoming installments. Suggestions for future topics are welcome in the comments. Thanks for watching.